still think he prepared everything underneath.
Then you didn't have to, you know,
You don't put any.
but if you would stick the little sheet in there and line it up perfect, yeah. Unless you're doing carbon.
There's no more homework you have to
You
move.
had. Then your SOL. Yeah.
We're back live.
I mean,
Sean was-
when you go to develop,
See?
but initially,
Yep.
you still, I don't know how much dirt you need to move here to make this work.
I see that.
Oh, I think that would be. I don't want dirt to move.
And then,
Well, are the Lennox girls ready to have 80 head until put on against Team Friday or not?
Rob
Yeah.
was just having a problem with
T's gonna put 80 on this?
But they score 70.
Take it. We got anybody
What did
else?
they score against Hill? 60.
my wife.
They lost by one.
They won't even get that many possessions.
You know, lowercase g. So I think
We'll run
that's
some.
the only thing I see wrong.
They can fill it up. They're all 5'8". No babies.
So we're gonna run it off the court.
They'll try.
We got it. We got it.
He's gonna score on me.
That's what I thought it was gonna be. Yeah.
Hey, is Jeremy feeling better?
Gonna bring Ace in,
Yes.
just gonna start helping.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
He's back full time?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Can't remember his name, but he's back.
I don't know if he knew it beforehand.
What?
Come borrow your pen,
Special.
please.
Only 3 people say that.
Ace got a haircut like yours?
Like yours?
Yes.
You like that?
Well-
His mother wasn't too happy.
No.
He's been begging for it, and finally on Sunday, she said, or Saturday night, she said, sure, go ahead.
That was my haircut from 5 until 15.
So you wasted $12 on Rogers a couple weeks ago?
He didn't get a haircut down there.
little far, yeah. You did? Oh, is there when you brought him in?
Oh, that was more than a couple weeks ago. I shaved off half of it a couple weeks ago. Slowly working her down. Now I gotta get the next one. Erin said she didn't know I was gonna take it to that level.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah?
Just stop that.
You want to read something?
Very excited to hear
Anything
Tom.
from there?
So, does she ever go to ours?
I don't.
I don't remember what they are. She does.
Okay. Good to know.
She was there Thursday afternoon. It's on her.
Did you sign it? Sure.
Only got a purple pen, so.
You okay, it's a double check.
What time?
Purple your favorite color?
You just tell.
Yeah. First time.
Jeremy, you're both
When
on
he's first time
Facebook.
here, the more he uses it.
It's not big enough. It's,
What?
the 17 foot wizard bike. Number
Oh,
one,
decent.
125 horsepower.
She was down in Jordan, but we, not a new, but,
Jordan?
yeah,
Yeah, pretty fun.
it's a 1981. All I know is it's got a cabin underneath or whatever that you can sleep.
What?
Yeah, I have no idea. I didn't know.
Wow. That's minimal. So, well, there's a Jordan.
Well, after the last time when they were here, the little boat that they had, and they ran out of gas. Gas on the river. Yeah, and so somebody rescued them, basically, and towed them in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Once you guys turn, you're a little small. You're heading down.
I think they look at the
Yeah.
potential. I think he dropped 70 in the first.
Still do.
Yeah, that depends on night.
I don't think, I don't know. I think it's score. I think
They're all kinds of. Was it 14?
That was part of it.
How long was it?
But we don't actually have 30, but they scored.
Authorization server has been lost.
I had the same thing.
That's what you guys were.
What?
You gonna go drink?
Yep.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Any additions to the agenda?
No additions.
I'd like to add a discussion on the tower, access to the county, under old business if we can.
Okay, we'll put it at B, access to power. Okay. Through here. Think I'll make that- Okay, anything else? If not, we'll make a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Chad Brock, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Visitors to be heard. Having none, we'll move on. Consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got Billy, motion Jackson, second Billy. Do a roll call vote. Billy?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Chad Riley?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Brock?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Appointment of city engineer. I'm going to look at appointing Stockwell with mutual improvement of the contract on the condition of that, so this time I'd like to put that up before the council, that Stockwell be it, but there'll be a contract of mutual approval before it gets into effect. Our attorney's looking at that, and we should have one up shortly, but we don't have one tonight, so.
Stockwell for all
Yep, Stockwell will be our city engineer.
wastewater treatment plant and everything.
Yep.
Mitch, you do have a couple of people now that do work with
Yes.
water and wastewater.
Yeah.
Okay. Ask for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Riley and Wolf. We'll go around. Billy?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Brock?
Abstain.
Chad?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-1 abstaining. All right. Once that contract's written up by our attorney, I'll have it for everybody to review. All right. B, access to tower.
Yeah, I just wanted to open it, I don't know if we can act on it tonight since it wasn't on the agenda, but I wanted to open it back up for discussion, I think. I know Chad, you had some concerns initially about it, and I think Nate's got all that answered, we're good to go in that regard.
Yeah, generally, I'm still waiting for a final from city attorney, but thankfully we have some time, I think. I'll talk to Jake at the county meeting tomorrow morning and learn more about his timelines, make sure that this isn't going to impact them too much, but I
Do
think it'll be okay.
Do they know when Golan was out there, did they have internet?
I don't think they did, which is a little surprising to me, but
They did auctions.
They took
over-
online bids.
Yeah,
They probably just had a hotspot or something.
if they-
yeah,
Yeah, but they did have internet out
yeah.
there. I can address that.
I went out to one of the gun sales and they were having bidders come in from all over the country, so.
I just wanted to get it out there so, you know, that if we're good on everything on our end, we have the consensus, we can communicate with the county and let them
Yeah,
know so they can
absolutely.
plan accordingly.
If
If this is a tabled item, can we take it off the table? Vote on it tonight?
We're waiting on the contract to get reviewed by the city attorney.
Yeah, so, and it wasn't on the,
You can take action on it tonight, since it was added to the agenda before it was approved. I would like to obviously hear back from the city attorney on a final yea or nay, but that's certainly the council's prerogative.
I'd like to get all the information before we act. All right, moving on, Lincoln County update. Thanks for coming.
I can see, you're attended by audience as well, like ours. You only will hear from your constituents when something's wrong. For those that don't know me, Michael Poppins, Lincoln County Commissioner, District 4, lifelong resident, et cetera, thanks, high school graduate. Biggest thing I can say, or the best way to explain how things are going in the county is there is nothing status quo. Everything's changing. Every department, roads, some of the things obviously that you're aware of with the changing of what was the Goldman Auction Pavilion to our current now and future site for our 4-H and maybe other things. We're very proud of that. It has been on the topic for many, many years to try to improve the facilities. For those that don't know where the facilities are now, it's behind the Canton Hospital on ground that's owned by the city of Canton. It's a relatively small site. Didn't provide the ability to grow much there, if at all. 4-H leaders were probably pretty upset with us over the years of not doing something. I think that got subsided when we finally did have an opportunity that came in front of us to purchase that site, the Goldman site, and I think it has huge potential. The commitment from the commissioners, all commissioners, are to try and enhance it to the best of our ability as quickly as possible. Obviously, there's got to be a lot of work to get done out there. The internet's just one of the small things that we're trying to improve on that site for interaction, because we are staffing the site with the 4-H leaders currently, or the offices, and they need to have constant internet access. We do have some internet out there right now, but it's not meeting what Jake would like to have out there. So if we can get it, I know it would be a benefit for 4-H leaders and staff. I mean, but that's just where we're starting. I want to save the best for last, but over the last couple of years, I think we've changed how we approach snow removal. I know my phone is ringing a lot less about how our road conditions are. I'm hoping you're seeing the same thing on our roads around here. We're using a slurry mix that is working very well. You know, I know in our previous highway superintendent that we were trying to encourage him to look into this a little bit. He was pretty reluctant, but I did think, he hated to say it, but I think he was thinking, well, maybe we did do the right thing there. So that's changing. Constant pressures from growth. I mean, you're really gonna start to feel this, I would say, in the next few years. You've got a development on the north side that you're working on to get going. We've been seeing that for years. I mean, we're still the 9th fastest growing county by statistics in the nation, obviously the 3rd largest county now in the state. And there's no signs of it stopping. So anything that you did last year may not work the next year because things change so quickly. School districts, your infrastructure, all your needs. I can only encourage you to look as far in the future as you possibly can. When I was on the commission back in 02, 06, you know, we were starting to do a little thought forward thinking. We added an addition to the existing courthouse, and my counterparts and I were hopeful that was going to be at least a 50-year before we'd ever have to look at something. Well, I got off the commission for 6 years, got back on, and it was literally the first thing that was back on our agenda was, we're already out of space. How's this possible? It's good and the bad. Budgets, I'm sure your budget's like our budget. There's never enough money for all the things you want to do. We've been fortunate to be able to survive on the growth factor. I'm not here to campaign on this right now, but the good has been good, now the bad is coming. We have got to take care of a lot of the issues that the growth has created. Improvement of roads, taking care of existing roads, taking on new roads. But the biggest thing that you're gonna see in front of us on the 18th is hopefully bonding for a new public safety facility, i.e. a jail. We had been up until recently housing prisoners in up to 9 different counties in 3 different states, including South Dakota. Which put a lot of pressure on public safety demands, so those costs went up because we gotta pay that attorney to go travel to visit with their client for the public defender, whether it's a mile or 50 miles. So if we're paying them for on the road, it's just time that we bring it down closer to home. We've recently went into a contract, a 5-year contract that we have in Minnehaha County to house 45 prisoners. We spend about $5,000 a day for that. That's only half of our prisoners. It adds up quickly. Our auditor doesn't like to see that number come through every time. But that is gonna be the biggest thing that you're gonna see changing in our county, hopefully, is that we, from early 80s, we haven't housed a prisoner since the early 80s. We're gonna be housing our own prisoners again, which is an increase of staff just to do that, probably about 35 people individuals to work that at a minimum. Some of that's, it'd probably be more than that for the jail, but some of the people that we're using for transports and things like that will be able to go over to that. And so it won't be as big of an impact labor-wise, but it's definitely time to happen. The contract that we have with Minnehaha County, they've been good to us over the years. Unfortunately, their pressures have pushed the cost to a point where it's just not an effective way to house prisoners for us anymore. A lot of good things going on, some bad things. I think we've seen a huge increase in the drug epidemic lately. Our crimes, 75 to 85% have some tie back to a drug of some sort or another. Alcoholism included. I don't know what the answer is. One part of the public safety center site that we're hoping to include down the road is maybe a treatment facility that will be able to house there in proximity to it, that will give those individuals that unfortunately don't have something to help them and give the helping hand. Because nationally, state-wise, it hasn't worked. We're just cycling them back, send them out back into the same environment, and we're seeing them coming back. So we're hopeful. There's a lot of detail in that that's got to get worked out, but we're hopeful that we can get a partnership to do that. And it's going to be a lot of time spent in the next couple of years while this jail gets built, working on that. And because it is a goal, and hopefully we come up with a model that can be used somewhere else. But it is on the agenda, and hopefully something that we can see to fruition, that we can once get somebody in, help them out so they don't come back. A lot of it has to do with housing. Once they've deemed a criminal, they can't get into the housing free type housing, which means then they're left to go back into those areas in which was inundated with the problem to start with that got them in there. So that's just going to be part of it.
Do they have a site for that jail yet?
There's a couple sites located. There is a primary site, and at this time I can't disclose that, but there is a good site identified. So
Or is it in terms of the rehabilitation?
it's going to be in the same landmass of the where the public safety facility is.
Because isn't Minnehaha or Sioux Falls doing what they call a triage?
Triage. That's kind of a deterrent. So what that is kind of focusing on is someone that's intoxicated. Instead of throwing them into the jail, they're going to detox them there, and they may have some other issues to defer them from going to emergency rooms. The cost for those types of individuals, indigent care type, is just going through the roof. They don't have health care, so they go simply to emergency care and then they get treatment there, and that's not the right way to do it. It's extremely costly versus that. So the Minnehaha County, we were part of the design of it, but in analysis of if we're gonna actually have anybody that participates in it, it's very unlikely because of where they're focusing the individuals to come to there from, mostly downtown Sioux Falls. But we were part in trying to get the grant to help get it started, as a part of the metro area. And they're hoping that in the analysis, if, it does show that we're utilizing it, they're hoping that we do participate, and we will if it does show that. But right now, it doesn't look like we're going to have, from the statistics that we could put together, that we're really gonna have any Lincoln County residents in that area. What we're talking about is somebody that's actually been arrested, gone into the jail system, and they're gonna get released, and instead of getting them released back into their same old environment, maybe they can get some help for the treatment of the alcohol or the drug addiction they have, as well as maybe have housing if they don't have a good housing opportunity available because they no longer can qualify for crime-free housing type properties, or can't be close to a park, or whatever the scenario may be, why they can't find good housing. Any other questions on that? Anybody wanna know the number that we're looking at
For the jail?
for the jail?
I know what it is.
You're looking at about roughly $47 million for the public safety facility, which should include the land. We're also going to include into that, hopefully, our discussion will be on the 18th, but additional funding to allow us to do some of the improvements. We're in desperate need of parking by the current courthouse in Canton. We have the old sheriff's building that's been sitting there now vacant for about a year. It's deemed unusable because of infrastructure, or the house, or heating that needs to get improved, as well as access. So we're looking at removing that facility and turning that into a parking lot. So we're hoping to include into this bond so we can pay for that over a period of time. As well as I spent 2 days with the circuit court system last week trying to forecast that growth. It's pretty startling. You know, the jail, they gotta go through the courtroom, and we're going to have to be adding courtrooms too. And so we're gonna have to know where that's going to be, whether that's going to be a remodel and revamp of existing space that we have, or 5 or 6 years down the road having to add, you know, courtrooms as well. But if we can include a little bit of money, hopefully none of us have ever had to be in the main courtroom in Canton, but it's getting a little outdated, to say the least. And although the judges and the circuit's been very good to us about not pressuring us, we do know the day's coming that we've got to do some remodeling in there for them. So, staffing, we're constantly growing. We just authorized to hire more staff for the state attorney's office. Sheriffs, we've been expanding. The need is unfortunately there to get more and more deputies out on the road, which is a trickle-down effect, you know, more treasurer's office, more auditor's office. Nothing different than what you guys are probably seeing here, so just a little bit larger scale maybe.
What are you looking at for the residential, for those that can't find a place, that are in need of treatment and need to be in a controlled environment?
A transitional housing unit?
Yeah,
Well, it's something that they can qualify to get into, that have some sort of supervision, but not like a jail situation. They'll be free to come and go, but we could possibly monitor them, and so that we can monitor who is coming to visit them, et cetera, et cetera. Because ultimately, it's peer pressure going right back into their same old environment.
Sounds similar to like the Sands Freedom Center.
Yep, we've researched that a little bit. So we have, by far, that is, the primary objective was to get, because our need was so evident, is to get the jail portion built first. But we all know that we want to incorporate something, we don't have the expertise, yes, to say what that will be, but we are working on it. Once we kind of get the format of the structure in place, I know that will be the next topic, is how do we do this, and where do we do?
thoughts on TIF districts?
TIF districts used properly are a great thing, great resource. I'm not gonna be, I wouldn't be truthful if I didn't say that sometimes they get overused. Again, they've gotta be used for the proper things. And initially, the states formatted it strictly to be, you know, very, very much business, economic, direct economic. But the problem comes is sometimes it's a housing aspect that needs to be incorporated. I know that's part of this, is you have jobs coming here, but nowhere for them to live. And you've gotta get that in check to figure that out. And sometimes you need that catalyst to get that investor to come in and make that investment into the area to get it going. Harrisburg did it several times. It's worked for them. The biggest thing I will caution is have a plan. Because once that growth, and Harrisburg's seeing this right now, they've had so much growth there, but they didn't foresee how to take care of all the interior roads that were existing, how to make those improvements. And now they're really scrambling, trying to figure out where that money's coming from. Because they're in desperate need of improvement. And they're not roads, you know, are not cheap to rehab, especially if you gotta urbanize them. So try to make sure when you're doing TIFs that you know that growth will come. When that growth comes and you don't get the revenue from that development during that growth period, how do you make the improvements that you need to make? I think that was the biggest surprise that Harrisburg had, because it worked so well and grew so fast that it caught them off guard a little bit. I'm not trying to put words in their mouth, but it's been an observation from visiting with them for the last 2 years of how they're gonna get their roads. We're in discussion with them to try to do a joint venture maybe eventually, once they have their system, I guess, planned. But a lot of that's, you know, they don't want us to tell them how to do their road, I don't think. It's just a matter of they would like us to pay for it, all of us to pay for it. We'll participate, but it won't be a, here's a blank check by any means. So. But TIFs, like I said, TIFs are a great thing. You've used TIFs here. I mean, you've had them already. They're all, is that paid for?
Yes,
Yeah.
got paid off ahead of time.
So fast. Worked great. So this one's a little different, but it's not unique by any means. But I do think that it's time for that catalyst to get the housing to come.
We agree.
Yeah. I don't want to take all your time. You got some questions, otherwise I'll sit down. Actually, I'm going to leave to go see my family. But what other question? There's got to be something else you guys want to know about, ladies. Nothing?
Well, the TIF is one of the main things on our mind, and getting that, and obviously, we're looking at the growth and it's controlled, and it's been established, like you said, we're the 9th fastest growing county in the nation. But we too want it to be sensible.
Right.
Make sure that the flow of traffic and all that is gone in. We're having our engineers look at that. And I just have a lot of questions that I would like to sit down with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I reached out to you. Maybe we can meet this Thursday and talk more about the TIF and
Sure.
how to go about that and what your thoughts are. So I really am interested. The 4-H building, and that is really exciting to me. It brings in youth and it brings in a lot of good things for our community.
And like that is probably the proudest thing that we have in front of us. I think it's really showing something that we're looking to the future for.
Yeah.
Because one of the aspects of the whole crime and all that, and I'm not saying families are distressed, and sometimes these kids are looking for something that they need to get involved with.
Mm-hmm.
And what better thing than 4-H really is that it is growing, but I think the growth potential is not met yet. I think we have a lot of more potential for getting that involvement from the youth, and including more and more activities, because it's not hogs and cattle and sheep per se anymore as when I grew up. It's more other activities. You know, shooting sports are huge.
Yeah.
And anything to give those kids a purpose so they don't get lost.
I agree.
And so we're extremely proud of being able to do that finally. I wish I could have said it, we'd done it 20 years ago, but we did it now. And it's not done. We want to commit more and more to to it so it can continue to grow, as well as become a staple of an area for this whole region. We're hopeful that maybe they can be some, you know, horse shows throughout the year, as well as other shows in that facility. It's definitely not just gonna be a 4 or 5 day event site, which hopefully will impact economically to this area as well. So.
I'm excited.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know the statistic, but originally the 4-H grounds were here at one time. So,
Back in 1920 somewhere.
yeah, way back when. So it's glad to come
Do
home.
you remember that?
I don't remember. I hear stories.
Jim Schmidt would. No?
Jim Smith, yeah.
That's what I heard.
So, but, yeah, if you guys ever want a question, call me directly. If you need me to come and talk to you, glad to do it. Things are good. It's just you can't sit back and rest. There's just a lot of stuff going on. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
A lot of fun. My wife wonders if I'm ever home. But it's all right. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
so
Mike.
much.
Take off. Are you there tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk to you then. Thanks, everyone.
Alright. Ordinance 606, sexually oriented businesses.
Thank you, Mayor. So in front of you, you got some updated language highlighted in the ordinance that we're considering tonight for our first reading. Well, I'm recommending this change to stay ahead of some changes in the types of businesses seeking to locate here. At the January Planning Commission meeting, Lincoln County
Yes.
Planning Commission meeting, there's a very interesting and spirited discussion on a type of business that was seeking a conditional use permit for a sexually oriented business, but it didn't really fit very easily in the definitions in their ordinances. So that business was described as an adult alternative lifestyle community center. It was a long discussion. I'm not going to go into all the detail about what it was, but suffice it to say that when we were viewing this discussion and comparing it to our current ordinances, the business would best be described as a social club under our zoning ordinances. And so that could locate anywhere in town and not be restricted to the current restrictions that we have. So this would update that language, update some definitions. I did have city attorney review this. He was good with it. He did say that if we wanted some additional restrictions, there's some more information we can discuss and go back with. So I would recommend a motion to approve the first reading.
It was eye-opening.
It was, to say the least.
It was very eye-opening.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. First reading done. All right, resolution 2020-210-01, water and sewer system surcharges.
Thank you, Mayor. As many of you know, our city water and sewer surcharges were long overdue for a review and recalculation. As has been mentioned in the past year, we haven't really updated those water and sewer surcharges in some time. Although our resolutions say that we review them annually, and we do with the state, although we haven't made adjustments to those over time. So a lot of folks have suspected that, given some of the growth in customer numbers for water and sewer, those rates should have decreased over time. So we did review the current rates and current customer numbers, and revealed that the surcharges could be reduced, but still allow us to meet our obligations under the loan agreement with South Dakota. So this resolution would reduce the surcharges on water and sewer service by a combined $1.76 a month. So if you're a 4,000 gallon a month customer, it's about 2%, 6,000, 1.74%, 8,000, 1.54%.
Sweet. Motion to approve.
Second.
Boy, I'm gonna go. I heard Chad Riley first, and since Billy jumped in with the second, we'll give it to him. We'll go roll call vote. Chad Riley? Aye. Jackson?
All right.
Billy?
Aye.
Chad Wolf?
Aye.
Brock?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Pool pass donation.
As Chairman Poppins mentioned, Lincoln County purchased going auction property north of town. 4-H is currently in the process of raising funds for that building. They want to outfit it for a number of different activities. Right now they're planning a spring fundraising event, and that event will include an auction
Motion to approve.
Jackson, Sam. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. All right, personnel, water and wastewater specialist.
Thank you, Mayor. Our current water wastewater specialist, Jeremy Jacobson, gave notice that he'll be leaving the city on February 21. We recommend a motion to advertise and interview for that position.
So moved.
Second.
Brock and then Chadwick. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Yep, done. Executive session.
Yes, we have two positions discussed under 1-25-24.
Okay, I move that we have a short recess, then go into executive session.
For those of you that hadn't had a chance already, Justin Myers is here. He's our newest city employee, park specialist. So if you got a chance to meet him yet, chat for a few minutes and say hi. Justin's already got the city of Vermillion coming up here tomorrow to give some ideas on school operations and household efforts.
Did you see when, they're gonna have the district meeting?
Yes, I sent that out to council this morning.
Good luck.
Vermillion this year. It's kind of
Hey, no problem. Yeah, you've been.
I don't know what the deal is.
You know what day the first day of the
Yeah,
city
we'll
basketball?
talk
Everybody shut the camera off.
No way. No way.
Good, yes, let's go do that. Jude, who's seconded?
Is that right? 19th, first day.
Yeah.
19th is Thursday. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So,
Yeah, probably is. They got it.
I suppose they got it all mapped out already. So yeah, March 19th.